insurance or not having health insurance that's adequate. So when President Obama talked about health care insurance in the campaign, he really meant it. And most people who've run for office in this country have always talked about, we got to fix health care, we got to fix health care. In fact, I think the first president that ran saying he needed to fix health care was our own Harry Truman. And that was a long, long time ago. So year after year, election after election, decade after decade, we always talked a good game about reforming health care, but did not really make any meaningful steps to do so. Well, we have now made a very meaningful step. And it was an incredibly difficult debate. I've learned now that the arguments for health care are complicated and take longer than a 30-second soundbite on TV. The argument against health care reform was pretty simple. Big government, bad government, don't trust them. And that argument took hold because of the economic uncertainty in our country right now, the frustration that people have in their own lives about their economics and their ability to do more for their families. It was very easy for people to take the route of just assuming that whatever was in the health care bill was bad. I would love to take just a few minutes and reassure you on the front lines of health care delivery, that there are many, many good things in the health care bill. We are going to expand coverage. We are going to bring another 34 million people into the umbrella of health care coverage in this country. Some by expanding Medicaid, and some by expanding the availability of private insurance. I think that there are several programs in the bill that have not been talked about a lot that you might be interested in. The Independent Payment Advisory Board, the ability for this advisory board to look at things that are working around the country that are saving money and make sure we're using those best practices all over the country. The CMS Innovation Center, where we can do a few pilot projects about bundling of care. This notion that when someone leaves the hospital, that there would be a group of healthcare providers that would be working together to make sure that person doesn't come back to the hospital. I sat in many rooms with anesthesiologists, with psychiatrists, with cardiologists. I spent many, many, many weeks traveling around Missouri, going to all different kinds of hospitals. Small private hospitals, large public hospitals, and everything in between, both in rural communities and in the urban centers. One of the hardest things to do when you're an elected official is to travel that line between wanting to be loved and wanting to do what's right. And one of the reasons we don't solve the hard problems in Washington is that it's very easy to say, well, let's just forget about it until another day because I want everyone to love me. It is very hard to fix problems like our healthcare delivery system, like Social Security, like our financial problems, like some of our foreign policy issues. It's very hard to do the right thing always and remain popular in all of the polls. And so what you have to do, and I try to do this every day, I try to stay firmly fixed on this notion. It is much more important that I do a good job for 6 years than I stay there for 18 years. It is very much more important. As Asfar mentioned, I did just return from Pakistan. I went to Afghanistan, and the reason I apologize to some of my friends in the room that I didn't call before I went, but it was one of those trips that was not well known before I went, and the itinerary was not well known because of everything that's going on in that part of the world. We are very careful about announcing trips of dignitaries that are going to that region of the world. And so I didn't really have the opportunity to spend time with many of you, which I would have liked to do before I went to Pakistan. But I did have a very informative trip. I went to Kuwait first and looked at some of the contracting oversight things that I focus on as a former auditor. We've lost a lot of American taxpayer dollars to bad contracting, to corrupt contracting practices in Iraq, and I'm trying to make sure that those same mistakes aren't repeated in Afghanistan. So that was my first stop. Then I went into Afghanistan for a few days and traveled around the country. I didn't just do the typical visit that many senators do in Kabul, I also went up to the northern part of Afghanistan, looking at the border, looking at some of the other regions around the country. And then I spent several days in Pakistan. I was both in Islamabad and in Lahore, and I was able to meet with the Prime Minister and the President, also with the military, also with the Interior Minister, also with some of the opposition political party up in Lahore, and I was able to watch a session of the Parliament. And it was great. You know, Pakistan clearly has a vibrant democracy. If the parliamentary session I watched is any measure of how full-throated the Pakistan democracy is, because first of all, it was so good to see so many women in the parliament. It was terrific to see the diversity in the parliament, and it was terrific to realize, and I wish we could do this, that when one side was speaking and the other side didn't agree, I liked that. I liked that. I wanted to come back to the United Senate and start banging on my desk. You know, I am a realist about the problems that we have in that part of the world. I wish more Americans understood the geography. I don't think most Americans understand the kind of neighborhood that Pakistan exists in, that Afghanistan is on the northern border, and India, and then Iran. This is really, Pakistan is essential. Our friendship and our relationship with Pakistan is essential to our peace in the world. It is essential. I was taken by the renewed, and I will be honest with you, I've been frustrated with the money that we've been giving to Pakistan for a number of years on the Armed Services Committee. I've spoken out several times because I was frustrated. It appeared to me, in the data that I've reviewed, that a lot of the money that we've been given to Pakistan over the years, instead of going into the SWAT region, instead of going into the northern part of Afghanistan and really ferreting out the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda that had taken root there, a lot of that money was going to the effort to make sure that Pakistan feels prepared and safe as opposed to India. And of course, we were wanting those resources to go into fighting terrorists and not into concern in Kashmir or the problems, the historic problems between India and Pakistan.
First of all, I would like to thank the host committee. Now, any retreat takes hours and hours of everybody's time. A lot of selfless volunteers give up many hours, and we know that a lot of us, most of the St. Louis community, sat for hours, sometimes till 12 midnight, working for this retreat. So they have all worked very, very hard. I hope that you all enjoy it, have a good time. You know, there may be some things, छोटी मोटी चीजें रह जाएंगी इधर उधर, मगर ये तो होता है.
Honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I am really honored to be here this evening at the retreat of Dogana and grateful to the organizing committee to have invited me. I bring greetings from Pakistan, and I am here to tell you that as Pakistani, we are a great nation.
सारे जहां में धूम हमारी जुबान की है. पाकिस्तानी डॉक्टरों की तकरीबात में हर बार जब मैं आता हूं तो यही सोचता हूं कि हमारे दोस्त, हमारे साथी, हमारे हमवतन पाकिस्तान से बाहर भी आ जाते हैं तो पाकिस्तान उनसे बाहर नहीं जाता. और पाकिस्तानी, अमेरिका में मुकीम पाकिस्तानी पाकिस्तान के लिए भी एक असासा है और अमेरिका के लिए भी एक सरमाया है. आप सब ने यहाँ आने के बाद अपनी ज़िंदगियों में मेहनत के ज़रिए बहुत सी कामयाबियाँ हासिल की हैं. पाकिस्तान और अमेरिका के ताल्लुकात पाकिस्तान के लिए बड़े कीमती हैं और अमेरिका के लिए भी बहुत अहम हैं. और मैं कभी कभी ये कहता हूँ, जब मुझ पे बाज़ तनकीद करने वाले ये कहते हैं कि मैं पाकिस्तान और अमेरिका के दरमियान अच्छे ताल्लुकात की वकालत क्यों करता हूँ, तो मैं हमेशा ये कहता हूँ कि ये वो ताल्लुक़ है جس تعلق کی بنیاد قائد اعظم محمد علی جناح نے خود رکھی تھی، یہ کہہ کر جب ان سے پوچھا گیا